Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode here at the Amazing podcast, where we talk about all things cloud native. And if you like what you hear, I want to encourage you to go and visit us at amazing.com and check out all that we do. We will be covering the upcoming KubeCon. We cover different events like the Hashi Days, HashiCon, a whole lot of other events. We have job listings, and we've also got a lot of articles on different topics cloud native. So if cloud native is what you're interested in, then Amazic is where you should be. And I'm Twain Taylor, editor at Amazic. And I have with me today two gentlemen who I'm quite excited to talk to because I've kind of followed this company from a distance for a few years now. I remember, I think 5, 6 years ago was when I first came across their open source project. I was quite fascinated with their idea of talking about that, the perimeter is now outdated and that you got to have smaller segmented perimeter for within the network itself, granular sort of network security. And I found that idea very interesting. And I really thought they were onto something. I'm quite excited to get to talk to them today and find out what they're up to and, just how their company and their product has evolved over the years. So I have with me Reza Ramazanpour, who is the developer advocate at Tigera. And I have with me Tomas Ruby, who's the staff software engineer at Tigera. So each of them are going to bring their own perspective on the market, on their product, and quite excited to be talking to them today about Tigera and their open source and commercial edition product, which goes by the name Calico. Calico Cloud is the product, and Calico, the open source project. So Reza and Tomas, it's great to have you guys with us today. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for taking us to your show, and we are happy to meet you and talk about Calico.
Thanks for having us.
All right, all right. So if you could tell us briefly your journey up to Tigera, your background, and where you guys come from, that'll be a great starter for us.
All right, I'll take it first then. Yeah, I'm an engineer in Tigera, and I'm originally from Europe, but we both now based in Vancouver, Canada, where is one of the offices that Tigera has. And I've previously done a PhD in secure and dependable operating systems, and so Tigera is kind of like a natural choice for me as a career. And so yeah, when the opportunity came up quite a while ago, I saw it's very exciting, so I jumped on it. And I'm with Tigera for almost 5 years now, and I'm primarily working on the eBPF data plane of the Calico project.
So my journey is opposite of Tomas. I went for experience rather than academia. I started with reverse engineering and then went to computer system engineer. I'm always curious about how things fit together and like figure out how things actually work. So that was my journey before Tigera, and coming to Canada, Vancouver, I was a student and there was a job offer like, we need somebody with curious mind. I'm like, well, that's enough. You got the right person. So here I am.
All right. Yeah, that's a cool intro. We've got we've got the academician, we've got the hacker. I want to ask about just Calico as a project because, like I was saying in the intro, I came across it maybe 5, 6 years ago for the first time, and really good presentation that I'd watched on just the ideas behind Calico. And I found it quite interesting. There's an example that I very vividly remember of a tortoise shell, and that, a traditional networking is like a tortoise shell. Yeah, so, I like how it was presented. I want to ask about Calico as a project back then, what it started with. I think it was policy-based network security. Uh, yeah, how has that changed? How has that evolved? And what did you guys start with, and where is it right now? If you could kind of briefly trace the evolution of Calico for us.
All right, yeah. I came across Calico at about the same time as you, interestingly. So some of the beginnings of Project Calico are for my time, but essentially, as the clouds and securing clouds becoming more difficult with the traditional tools like perimeter firewalls and that stuff, then someone got the idea of let's take a step back, redesign the firewall. There was an advent of software-defined networks. It was even before Kubernetes, but workloads started to be like ephemeral and often changing, and the regular firewall wasn't good enough anymore. So the idea was to have something that is designed for the new era of cloud, and take the firewall into the cloud and make it much more fine-grained and much more secure for the new age. So it started, I think, with OpenSwitch, and when I joined, Kubernetes were picking up. So the project was luckily designed with flexibility in mind, and with the idea that we are not going to be stuck with one technology, but the technology will evolve. So these days, Calico supports a whole bunch of environments. It can run in Linux, where it started, where the IP tables is, and the net filter and the regular network stack is the data plane. It also runs in Windows, so you can secure window workloads. And as new technologies picked up, it kind of moved more towards Kubernetes environment, because that's the primary environment these days. And it's not really used much for securing kind of like outside cluster resources or like bare metal resources as it used to be. And then new technologies like eBPF came up, and so Calico embraced eBPF. So we also have an eBPF-based data plane, which has some advantages over the regular Linux data plane. And we even got contributions from the open source community. And so we have VPP data plane. VPP probably is not super well known, but it stands for Vector Packet Processing. It's kind of a project supported by Cisco, based on top of the Intel and DPDK. So it's for like very fast packet processing, and Calico can be used even in that environment. And I know for sure that other companies or other projects are using Calico as kind of the front end for their own backends, like eBPF compiled into hardware and things like that. And I think Alibaba has a fork of Calico projects. So Calico kind of proved to be very flexible and usable. And this pretty much is just the open source that you're talking about. It's the networking part. It provides you with networking in Kubernetes, and it provides you with policies and the network security. But Tigera, that's the company we both work for, and which is maintaining the project, offers an enterprise solution with a whole bunch of bells and whistles on top of the open source project. And for the ease of use, we also offer a cloud-based Calico Cloud offering that allows you to defer the maintenance of Calico itself to our team in cloud, and that even provides more features that are way beyond network security. So Calico is kind of becoming a comprehensive security solutions where we do all at the bottom of the networking, but also like your image scanning and assessment of your whole cluster security and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and the beauty is throughout all these years and all these changes, there are two things that are still inside the core of Calico. One is simplicity. Like if you want to run Calico, just a couple of steps and done. You're ready to go, everything works. Second one is it has a pluggable way of working with everything. So for instance, Alibaba, they're using the core of Calico to take care of everything, but they're using their own eBPF stuff to implement the networking. So these are quite fascinating to see other people.
The beauty of the open source development and some clever design that came into Calico at the very beginning.
True.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow, fascinating. I want to ask about just some of the challenges that make people look for something like Calico and then find Calico. How does it start? What are some of the pain points that organizations are dealing with that brings them to Calico? What do you hear from your new customers?
So in terms of, it depends on your portfolio. Like, what is it that you like to do? If you're a hands-on sort of person or hands-on sort of company, then you would start from open source. Everything is there. It just, your commitment is just time. You will invest time, you get it up and running, networking, security, and from there you can go into like application security with our integrations and other sort of stuff. However, let's say you don't have the time and you would like a team of experts to take care of everything. Then you could go via Calico Enterprise or Calico Cloud, which would be everything is taken care of by Tigera, and you have access to Calico experts, basically. And there are a lot of features that are native, which kind of missing from open source, and are only for the enterprise and Calico Cloud. So these are how we are looking at it, which is like, what is your commitment to your environment?
Yeah, really, as Reza said, it totally depends on your use case, right? Like Kubernetes doesn't come with like a networking on its own. They have a plugin. So Calico at the basics offers you networking, right? Nothing more really. But it allows you to build on top of that with policies, security, and allows you to kind of grow into bigger, more comprehensive security with the enterprise and cloud offerings. But you definitely have to start from networking. It's a internet cluster after all.
Yeah. And when you say networking for Kubernetes, you know, the name that comes to the word that comes to my mind is service mesh. And you know that tools like Istio and Linkerd, there's probably some overlap between what they do and what Calico does. How would you position Calico, alongside these service mesh tools? Where does Calico fit into the Kubernetes networking story?
Yeah, I think that these are quite orthogonal things. So you can use Istio or are the mesh on top of Calico. Calico provides the basic networking. That's the plugin for Kubernetes, and allows you to do security. While the mesh on top of that, and these two things are not conflicting, allow you to kind of structure your network or your services slightly differently. But this really, like, Calico is underneath, and Istio and the mesh is on top of that, and your applications are even higher up in the stack. At the same time, Calico offers some of the features that the meshes offer as well, like encryption. So if you do not want to install another product, but you want to secure your traffic on the wire, you don't have to go for a mesh, which may get complicated. But you just install, say, Calico with the WireGuard support, and you get encryption. And so there are some features which are overlapping, but we are not really trying to be a mesh.
Yeah, in terms of service mesh, like the way I look at it is, it happens on a higher level. So you first need to have networking in your cluster. That's where Calico used to shine and it still shines. So that place is secure. Now, if you want to have service mesh, let's say, as Tomas said, encryption is important for you for some compliance or some sort of thing that you need to have. Then you can install either Istio on top of Calico or Linkerd. I'm assuming you're using Calico open source. But if you're using Calico Enterprise or Calico Cloud, you can actually use the native encryption that we offer, which is all Calico. But again, it depends on what is your solution, what you want to get out of the service mesh. If it's layer 7 observability, sure, that works. If it's encryption, there are better ways to have encryption.
Wow, thanks. That's a really honest response about the capabilities and how, what they meant to do. That's really good to hear. I wanted to dig in to ask a bit about eBPF, which seems to be a very vital component of Calico, and you mentioned that it's a more recent development in the Calico world. Could you explain for us what is eBPF and what does it do? What's its role in Calico?
Oh yeah, totally. First of all, I would like to say it is a new feature, and Calico can run in environments where eBPF is not available. Just to be clear about that, because say we run in Windows environments and some other environments, so eBPF is not the essential thing for Calico, but eBPF allows us to do much more exciting stuff. And the reason for that is that eBPF is essentially a way how to extend Linux and Linux kernel, right? The operating systems give you some API, but that's quite rigid. And there are ways how to expand Linux kernel, but not in a safe way. And we are in the security business. And if you tell someone like, hey, load this module and we will give you this this feature, then people will go, oh, how do I know that that module is not causing crashes and doesn't have security holes and so on, right? And this is where eBPF comes in. And there are many places in the Linux kernel where you can attach eBPF programs. And as the code goes through the Linux kernel, it calls into these programs and allows you to change the execution, change the data, or report data. And it allows you to do that in a secure way. And that's the coolest thing about eBPF. So you write an eBPF program, it is loaded into the kernel, and the kernel verifies that the program is not doing something that it should not do. And only when the kernel itself is sure that it's not going to shoot itself in the foot, when loading that program, it allows you to load that program. So suddenly it gives you like a tremendous opportunities to expand the kernel in the same way without the user actually knowing. If you have an Android phone, you're probably running a whole bunch of eBPF without you even knowing it. And as the time goes, and we started on the eBPF data plane and using eBPF 4.5 years ago, that's about the time, and we kind of have it maybe for 4 years as general availability. We use it to do things which we were not able to do before with the legacy Linux, like bypass some of the Linux stack to kind of move the packets faster through the network stack. It allows you to implement some stuff that kubeproxy does in a much more efficient way. But it goes way beyond that. It gives you visibility into the system, right? eBPF was primarily used at its inception for like getting data from the kernel, like benchmarking the kernel, profiling the kernel, observing stuff in the kernel. And this is what we can leverage for other features than networking. And this is what we offer in Calico Cloud and in Calico Enterprise, in runtime security, where we actually look at what the processes are doing, what they are executing, and we can inspect and recommend your actions based on that. And it's probably worth pointing out here that as we talking about the eBPF data plane, that's for the moving the packets around. We also use eBPF, and we have the legacy IP tables data plane. So you can install Calico for networking in the usual way it always used to be, and leverage eBPF, say, for the runtime security, where we poke the system for what the applications are doing, or getting some statistics from sockets and so on. So we can use like full eBPF or just partial, and we can bring new features thanks to eBPF. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What do you see with your customer base? Do you see a lot of them opting for eBPF or more simpler options like IP tables or something else?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? It is up to the user to kind of evaluate where it makes sense to jump for an eBPF data plane, and lots of users, especially in open source, are using eBPF because it's cool, it's a new thing, and people are technical and want to play with that stuff. And the question is, what benefit it brings you, right? Like, there is an IP tables-based data plane which is rock solid, 30 years of development in Linux provided by out of the box, right? And you may not need the cutting-edge performance, but once you start moving to the kind of like high-performing environments, and security always comes with a cost, and you want to lower the cost to justify that you do have security, then the eBPF is often the right choice to go with and move things forward.
Got it. Yeah, I was looking up your website and I came across this interesting phrase, which I want to ask you about it. It's mentioned prevention-centric security. And I was curious to know what this actually means and how does it translate to what Calico does? What is prevention-centric security?
Sure. So when you have an environment, there are a lot of stuff that can happen, right? So you would need sort of fortress that can prevent everything from like either happening, and I'm talking malicious stuff, or like people attacking you and these sort of stuff. So Calico Cloud and Calico Enterprise are that prevention-centric approach, which gives you all the things that you would need in terms of runtime security with eBPF, or policies, like your network policies, the VAF for application layer, or layer 7 if you're an OSI person, a dashboard to give you like image security, everything that you are running in Kubernetes or a container environment. Well, it uses containers, and these containers have images, a lot of libraries. Well, are these safe? Those safe. So that's the whole idea of prevention-centric. Like, it's your one-stop shop for all the information that you can find about stuff that are happening in your cluster or have happened before inside your cluster.
And we want to prevent things from happening.
Yep.
We don't want to be like a post-mortem solution for auditing, although we can provide those audits. We want to prevent you to be attacked in the first place, right? So we give you hints, and we give you suggestions, and we give you scores of how secure is your environment, and before anything happens.
Yeah, there's actually a log4j blog that we wrote a while ago. I think it was 2 years ago, which is like, well, this is a 0 day, no argument about that. But did you know, with like a fairly simple network policy, you could have prevented it? Like, it's a 2-step attack, right? So step 1 happens, all right, big whoop. Step 2 is the actual thing, like when your system tries to connect back to the malicious attacker. So if you have a simple network policy, which is like, all right, these are the stuff that I want to do with my cluster, and these are the ports that I have, done, it will be like preventing a 0 day attack. And yeah.
Oh, right. Wow, interesting. So yeah, so there's preventing security incidents even before they happen is a great benefit. What about catching performance bottlenecks and just finding them quickly and resolving them? How does that work with Calico?
Calico is not really primarily a tool to fix bottlenecks in your system. However, it gives you visibility into your network, and that helps you a lot in like understanding what is actually happening in your network. So we can visualize how the services and applications in your network communicate, and you can use that information to kind of troubleshoot your network. I think this is one of the things that customers like a lot, that it saves them tremendous amount of time to when they understand how their network operates. Because in Kubernetes, things are moving around, and you may have a mesh, and applications are connected to services, and services are backed by ever-changing amount of pods in various locations. So Calico can give you great insight into how it works.
All right. I was wondering if you could give us a walkthrough of the product itself, Calico Cloud, and how it works and how people use it. What can they do with it? What's possible? Could you just give us a little demo?
Oh yeah, that's that will give much better understanding of how things are when you can see the picture.
All right. So this is Calico Cloud in its glory. You got your left menu, which is actually you're usually presented with the welcome page. It gives you a bunch of stuff that you can do. You can either check documentation, help center, or workshops that are built around what are the stuff that you can actually get out of Calico. But getting out of welcome page, let's go to threat defense, since we talked about Calico and sort of prevention-centric. So there are threat defenses or threat feeds that we actually give you. These are domain names, IPs that we have found throughout our network that be malicious or doing DDoS at the moment. So you are always getting the information right off the bat. All right, these IPs, don't let them in. Anyway, next up would be web application firewall, since you asked about things like Istio. Well, we do give you application firewall, which is, all right, what is happening throughout your application layer. If somebody's talking to the index page that they shouldn't be, you can secure it. And by the way, it also gives you all the metrics that you would need. Next step would be container threat detection. So this is the part about eBPF. In order to run eBPF probes, you need to first enable it. You do enable it here, and then you would get security events. So security events are from everywhere, but these are security events that are happening in your container threat detection. So we'll tell you, all right, there was a pod and that pod tried to do something. Is that something that you know about it or not? And while these are medium, there are a bunch of them that are critical, like this one. So if you have a ransomware or a malware or anything, these are packed binaries and they usually have hash signatures. In order to figure out what a malware is doing, first you need to unpack it. Everything happens in the kernel, right? And you got eBPF. So you can actually probe the right place and see, oh, this file is, this is trying to access a file where it's not supposed to. I don't care if it's packed or not packed. I'm not gonna unpack it. I'm just telling you, this is something that shouldn't be happening for this pod or this in this namespace because it doesn't look like a right thing. Or you could get information about, all right, somebody's trying to install something in this pod, which they're not supposed to. On top of that, there are a bunch of dashboards to give you a quick glance of what is happening. Like for instance, if your policies are working or if DNS working, what are the processes that you are running in your pods, which is again from eBPF. You would need to know what processes are working because that would give you a lot of hints about, all right, I don't have, for instance, a pod underline Manny. That seems a bit suspicious. Let's see what this is, which takes you to the part of service graph. So here is all your workloads, all your nodes, all your services, and you can actually dive into, let's say, WOT, like what is WOT is doing. And you can go in and it tells you, all right, your WOT does have services. Here is using Redis, WOT, result, and DB services. And these services are trying to communicate with a public network. It also has a load generator that is trying to communicate with it. If you want more, it will tell you that load generator is coming from source pod of this, and the action is actually allowed. You can even go deeper and figure out, all right, when this happened, how this happened, what are the pod annotations, like what port, what service, so on and so forth. And on top of everything, there is a new dashboard that we are trying to implement, which we actually implemented, which is security posture. So security posture is all the stuff that you have seen in terms of images, in terms of services, egress, ingress, like whatever it is, we take them all into account and give you a score. And that score means how far you are from the best security practice. And if you are far off, it will give you steps like, all right, you can actually come here and start with namespace isolation or microsegmentation. You could actually take your namespaces and put parameters around it. Like there is no need for instance, hipster shop to talk to kube proxy or whatever. And these are the steps that you can take in order to secure your cluster.
Yeah,
Wow.
that one feature, for instance, specifically is a feature that is Calico Cloud only, and you would not find it in Calico Enterprise. And the one other thing that is cool about this Calico Cloud is that you can manage multiple of your clouds from a single space.
Oh yeah,
right. That's essentially you have one console, and it shows you all the clusters that are in your organizations, and you can just go from one to another without like logging into different accounts and so on and so forth.
I sort of feel like we need to talk about, okay, I'm a big fan of networking. So we didn't talk about policies, but I really like to talk about policies. We do give you a dashboard that shows you all the policies that you have in terms of networking. And it gives you a way of tiering so you can have levels of security. For instance, your database team could have tier of their own, and it could happen after the security team. And the best part is we do actually recommend you policies, which is a headache for people to figure out how to actually write a policy, which needs to be a little bit like, for instance, if you want to write a policy that allows something to happen or prevents something to happen, where is the first step? How to do it? Well, we actually tell you, like, this is the policy for the workload that one of my coworkers enabled. And it tells you actually, all right, here is your policy. These are the packets that are now actually going through. With this policy, this thing gonna happen. Would you like to run it or stage it? Running it means effective immediately, put it in traffic and like prevent or permit. Stage means put it there, let me see what happens. Like don't affect the flow, but just show me how much traffic is going forward or through this policy.
Yeah, when we were talking before about the prevention-centric aspect of Calico, imagine that you're a user who wants to secure some workload and you don't really know how the workload works, right? So those recommendations gives you like, hey, these two things are talking together. Maybe you should allow it, or lets you decide whether they should actually talk together, because we see that they are talking together. Now it's up to you to decide whether they are allowed or not. So these recommendations are totally awesome. And that's the real value that the Calico Enterprise and Calico Cloud are bringing to you on top of Calico Open Source, is that you have this UI and you have all these recommendations, and especially in Calico Cloud, where we see lots of things, we can give you more and better suggestions. So
how do you get these? How does Calico get these recommendations? Because I'm assuming this is not part of the open source, so it's only part of Calico Cloud, I guess, and maybe Enterprise. But how does it come up with recommendations? Does it look at existing patterns and watch for certain triggers and then takes those and, makes a recommendation out of those triggers? How does it work?
Yeah, exactly. You spot on. We see traffic, and for instance, we see two workloads which are in different namespaces. So we can give you a recommendation like, are you really sure that these two things should talk to each other or not? We have something that's talking, which is opening connections to the outside world. It's like, are you really sure that this should happen? So there are some heuristics, and we are aiming to improve on that. And now with the AI being the the buzz, then we can obviously, hopefully in the future, effectively employ that as well, because the computers can do lots of work that you do not see as a person. On the other hand, you as the owner, you as the user, you have the final vote on this thing. So it's not like the Calico would put into place policies that you are not aware of, because we might be blocking traffic that we think it looks a little suspicious, but you as a user know that it is not. So you are still at the driving wheel, like in Tesla.
Yeah, absolutely. And I quite like the service graph and the way it visualizes your entire cluster and the different parts of it. And really, yeah, I think surfaces hidden things that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. Especially, I love the way it connects it all with the arrows showing which one is talking to which and in what direction. Really cool stuff there. And also saw that when you go more granular into each of those services, I think the data can get quite overwhelming sometimes. It's good that you have that severity level. I also saw that there's a way to query the data, right? And so you can find exactly something that specifically you're looking for. So anything you want to comment on that in terms of like how, with all of the data that's in there, what are some ways that you've made it easy for a user to find something very specific that they're looking for?
Yeah, I think very specific is blocked traffic. So in this demo, you see that there are like green arrows. That means all the traffic is allowed. But what is difficult to see is traffic which we've prevented. So here in the graph, we would highlight it with red arrows like, hey, here's actually some traffic that you're not expecting, your policies are denying. So maybe something's happening in your cluster. And then you can use the tool to kind of drill in and find the source. And as you were talking before about like how Calico helps you with bottlenecks, and maybe it doesn't help you much with the networking bottleneck, but definitely helps you with your human resources bottlenecks.
All right. So yeah, so definitely, there's just definitely deeper observability you get with Calico, and I think just a more secure stance for just your, all of your clusters, wherever they run. And quite interesting that you pointed out how you can manage all of your clusters networking from one place using Calico. That's quite powerful. Anything more that you wanted to chime in on, in terms of, some of the unique things that you guys have built into Calico Cloud or Enterprise that you'd like to call out that maybe isn't there in the open source version?
Oh, there's so many things which are not in the open source version. The open source is really like the networking solution and the networking security solution. While our goal is to move to a real comprehensive security solution. So, for instance, the score for your cluster is taken from scanning the images that you run in your cluster. So before we deploy or you deploy an image as a user, or we can scan the image and tell you like, hey, by the way, this application is not the safest, or this version is not the safest version. And so Calico is now going way beyond just networking. Started there many years ago, but we are going way behind that, and that's all our roadmap, right?
Yeah. So like runtime security, which is what is happening in your system actually right now, like what are the actual things that processes are running in your cluster. So every pod, every workload is actually running inside your host. They are in their sandbox, in their namespaces, but they're actually running in your host. So if something happens, then a lot of things might get compromised. We have image assurance, which tells you, all right, you got containers. Containers are part of your cluster or environment, container native environment, right? So these are the things that are happening inside your containers. Like this image, this repository that you are using might be compromised because of this library that there's in there. Like you might have gotten into some sort of supply chain attack without knowing. Somebody might have poisoned the DNSs and like redirected you to another repository to pull your image from. Well, without unpacking it inside your host, will tell you, all right, there seems to be something fishy here because these libraries doesn't look that clean. So these sort of stuff are way ahead of networking, which we started from. And like everything complements the security overall. And you have that prevention-centric thingy.
Yeah, that's why we have like a comprehensive cluster security score and doesn't highlight which part of security. It's just like, are you closer or to perfect security or far away?
Yeah. How low does the cluster security score get for like a new customer who's just come in and just plugged in Calico into their system? How low does it go?
Hello, I have no idea, to be honest.
It depends. So at the moment, there are a lot of things that got patched. For instance, we used to run Kubernetes without a secure API server. And you were able to just go to API servers and say, what are in this cluster, by the way? And the anonymous thingy was open for everyone. So getting those out of this question, I would say 40, 30 would be a place to land if you're like just running stuff that are compromised. But most people would get into like, so it's not about the score, it's more about the mindset. Like if you see a problem in sort of a visual way, you would understand, all right, the next time that I want to deploy, let's check ABCD, or maybe put it in your pipeline CI/CDs, like use Calico APIs to like figure out what is going on. It's more about that mindset, if we say so, tells just like the score.
Yeah, essentially when we have a new user, like the score is expected to be low, right? Because the user doesn't have any insight into the security. And so they connected in, they have no idea what vulnerabilities are in the containers. So the moment they plug it in, they get that feedback. Usually they don't go straight into production. There's always a phase like, I want to get my application into production. So and I want to be secure when I go into production. So there is some time. And all the recommendations and all this stuff helps you to actually take actions and get into high score.
Yeah. And it probably even becomes kind of like a quarter-on-quarter or month-on-month thing that you want to improve. I don't know if the security guys want to hide it from their boss, like, is there a way to turn off this feature?
I don't know, you would have to talk to the users to get that experience. It's probably not sharing the results. I got fired because I was trying to hide the board.
No, but it is cool, and I think it's definitely a great way to measure your efforts with security, because otherwise it can be quite nebulous. You're doing stuff, but what's the result and where do you stand? This is a great way to really, measure things and give it a score. That's really innovative and really cool.
Yeah, one of the ideas behind the Calico project and what we do here at Tigera is that we want to have things simple, plug and play. That's the motto. You just plug it in and it works. And that's often the feedback we get from the users, that it just works, and it's pretty cool feedback.
Yeah, sounds awesome. So as we wind down, someone who's listening to this, watching this, if they're interested in trying out Calico, where do you recommend they start? Start with the open source, or do you have a free trial for Calico Cloud? How do you recommend they start?
Oh, I would say calicocloud.io. There's a free trial. They could figure out everything, like how everything fits. From there, they can then decide what is the best option. Would I like to stick to open source? Would I like to go remain in Calico Cloud? Again, these are decisions that are based on what you want to get from cloud native networking. Do you just want to learn? Do you want to have a big enterprise, a big production? These are the questions that you need to answer. But I would say Calico Cloud is the best step into the cloud native world.
And for users who just starting with Kubernetes, they're looking for a CNI to run the network, then Calico is a good choice, the open source Calico, that allows you to do just networking without any policies. And once you start discovering your way into cloud native, then you can keep learning. And we provide lots of trainings and lots of certification programs. We have blogs and other material on our website where people can learn and make educated decisions on how they run their clusters.
And to add to this, so Calico open source is used by companies like Reddit. The share of that traffic is being handled by open source. So there is not really what we sort of offer. It's more like, what would you like to get out of your environment?
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Thanks, you guys, for just breaking it down for us today and just explaining the different parts of this Calico and what it does, and even giving us a really interesting demo where you showed us so many different cool things that only Calico does. Was quite an interesting talk and quite cool what you guys are building there. So congrats on that, and hope you guys have a great year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before you head out, though, we got a couple of questions to get to know you a bit more. So you guys can maybe take turns and alternate with these. Yeah, so the first one is, what would be your alternate career path if not for your job in tech?
I will be a chef or a stand-up comedian.
Right. Okay, so you got some jokes and you got a whole...
Well, debatable, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be probably in skiing.
Okay.
I'll be
All right.
somewhere else.
Yeah, all right. Neat. The next one, maybe Thomas could take this one. One hobby or interest that you picked up during the pandemic.
I have two kids, so me and my wife are just juggling the kids and work and all this stuff during pandemic. I had absolutely no time to pick up any hobby or interest. Sorry to disappoint you.
Well, juggling kids, it could probably count as a very difficult hobby to master. So yeah, congrats, you actually
It is a
did
good
that.
hobby.
All right, for Reza, one tech company or product that inspires you, and what about it inspires you?
Company or product? Could it be a group
Yes.
of people?
Sorry.
Does it need to be a company?
No, it
There's
could
a
be
group.
person as well. Yeah, that's cool.
There's a group of people called Fail Overflow. They do wild hacks. It's just like the way that they think is just mesmerizing to me. But yeah, that will be something.
As a hacker talking here.
How do you find them? Where are they at? Do they have a website or are they on?
Apologies.
How do you find them?
Oh, Fail Overflow. If you search, they're everywhere. Just
Okay.
they've been to PS3, PS4, PS5, iOS, whatever you can think of, they find a way to hack it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll check them out. All right. Thomas, for you, complete the sentence. At a party or a conference, I'm usually the guy who.
Sorry again?
You gotta like complete the sentence.
All
The
right,
sentence is, at a party or a conference, I'm usually the guy who.
Develop stuff that Reza breaks.
Okay, so that's your demo and a gist at a conference. All right. All right. Last one for you, Reza, is uh, as a developer advocate, you wear a lot of hats. Talking to people outside, inside the company. You part developer, part marketer, part trainer, teacher, part product guy. A lot of things that you do. But which of these roles most resonates with you, and which excites you the most?
If I have to pick, I would go engineer because again, I'm very curious in order to figure out how a thing works. And I like to learn that to build something that I can do to break that thing. So I would say engineer.
Wow, you gave quite an orderly demo for that kind of attitude. Yeah, no, it was really cool talking to you guys though. And yeah, I think Calico is really interesting. And I hope our viewers as well agree and they'd want to check out more about how they can use Calico. So yeah, thank you guys once again for joining us. All the best to you, all the best to Calico, and we hope to connect with you again sometime soon when maybe a new big feature drops or something.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, and thanks to all of our viewers and listeners for tuning in, and we hope you'll catch us again for the next episode. So the three of us signing off now. See you next time. Bye-bye.